heresiarch, heresy, an originator or chief advocate of a heresy. A heresiarch. A heresiarch. French heretic, the ecclesiastical Latin from Greek heretikos, able to choose.
It is Tuesday, 7:49 p.m., May 28th, 2019. I again find myself talking into a sound-dampened box to get the best audio I can. My name is Kessie Anderson, and this is Heresiarch. To continue on with our study of the Noahide Laws, we need to get a table set that has some definitions, as well as an understanding of what we're even studying, because it does get a bit complicated and it needs unpacking. This is not just upfront gospel doctrine in the Bible. There is quite a bit more to it. So to start off, we're going to talk about the Torah itself. At its surface, most people think that the Torah is the Jewish holy book. We're about to find out what actually is the Jewish holy book. Torah, in Judaism, the law of God as revealed to Moses and recorded in the first 5 books of the Hebrew Scriptures. Another name for it is the Pentateuch. What is the meaning of Torah in the Bible? Torah in Judaism, in the broadest sense, the substance of divine revelation to Israel, the Jewish people. God's revealed teaching or guidance for humankind. The meaning of Torah is often restricted to signify the first 5 books of the Old Testament, also called the Law, or the Pentateuch in Christianity. What is the Pentateuch? Pentateuch means the first 5 books of the Bible. These books are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The word Pentateuch comes from 2 Greek words that mean 5 books, or 5 scroll. According to tradition, the books were written by the Israelite leader, Moses. Now you have the Bible, the Old and the New Testament. In my graphic illustration, in the blue box, that is the Torah. In the light blue box, that is the entire Hebrew Bible called the Tanakh. Now you must understand, those are not the authority in Judaism. These 2 books are basically helpers to assist in the entire belief of Judaism, but they are not the supreme authority. Now notice the red box, the New Testament, that is crossed out. In fact, by calling it the Old Testament in Judaism means that there is another New Testament. That is not acceptable. So even the term Old Testament is irrelevant in their tradition. Tanakh, Hebrew Bible, is an acronym for the first Hebrew letter of each of the Masoretic texts. 3 traditional subdivisions: Torah, teaching, also known as the 5 books of Moses. And now, I know I'm going to butcher these, I don't speak Hebrew. Nevi'im, prophets, and Ketuvim, writings, hence Tanakh. Judaism organizes the books of the Old Testament differently as well. So your traditional Old Testament, whether it be King James, New International Version, whatever version you use, if it is not the Hebrew Bible, it will be formatted differently, and the books numbered differently, as well as their chronology and order put in different order. But I'm not going to delve into that. We're going to go into the more important substance. Judaism does not accept Jesus as the Messiah, nor accept the New Testament as Scripture. I went to Google and I just typed in, do Jews accept the New Testament? The belief that Jesus is God, the Son of God, or a person of the Trinity is incompatible with Jewish theology. Jews believe Jesus of Nazareth did not fulfill messianic prophecies that established the criteria for the coming of the Messiah. Now I want you to be clear what you have to understand. Though the Torah is the law, it, the Torah, as well as the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, or according to Christianity, the Old Testament, are not their holy book. Now, as a review, the Torah or Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. what happened after Moses was given the Torah on Mount Sinai. He wrote down the Noahide Laws on the first set of tablets. On the second set of tablets, the Decalogue, or the Ten Commandments. Also, Moses spent 40 days in the mountain. He was then dictated even more information from God, which became the oral tradition. Now that was formulated in later generations throughout Judaism. Rabbis discussed and debated to determine their legal code and religion. This is called the oral Torah, or Talmud. The Talmud is the compilation of the historic rabbis discussing or debating what the Torah means. The term Talmud may refer to the Gemara alone or the Mishnah and Gemara together. The entire Talmud consists of 63 tractates and in standard print is over 6,200 pages long. So it's the one holy book that you've probably never even heard of, and yet it is 6,200 pages long, swaying Jewish opinion. Now the Mishnah, Hebrew study by repetition from the verb shana, to study and review, is the first major written collection of the Jewish oral traditions known as the Oral Torah. It is also the first major work of rabbinic literature. The Mishnah was redacted by Judah the Prince at the beginning of the 3rd century CE. The persecution of the Jews and the passage of time raised the possibility that the details of the oral traditions of the Pharisees from the Second Temple period, 536 BCE to 70 CE, would be forgotten. Most of the Mishnah is written in Mishnaic Hebrew, while some parts are Aramaic. Now that is from Wikipedia. Notice the use of CE because God forbid you admit that Jesus existed. Also pay attention to oral traditions of the Pharisees. If you understand who the Pharisees were in the New Testament, it gives you an idea of the mindset that was behind the interpretation of the Torah. The Gemara, also transliterated Gemara, or less commonly Gomorrah, from Hebrew, from the Aramaic verb gamar, study, is the component of the Talmud comprising rabbinical analysis of and commentary on the Mishnah. After the Mishnah was published by Judah the Prince, 200 CE, so 200 years after Christ's birth, the work was studied exhaustively by generation after generation of rabbis in Babylonia and the land of Israel. Their discussions were written down in a series of books that became the Gemara, which when combined with the Mishnah constituted the Talmud. Now, there are even 2 Talmuds. You have the Babylonian Talmud, and you also have the Jerusalem Talmud. Babylonian Talmud, Bavli, Jerusalem Talmud, Yerushalmi, or Yerushalmi. Both of them have the same Mishnah. Each one has a different Gemara. Now, it's always assumed that the most important text of Judaism is the Torah. But while it is true that the Torah is uniquely revered as the essence of our faith identity and elevated above all other texts as the unadulterated Word of God, the primary text of Judaism is undoubtedly the Talmud. When they say just the Talmud without any qualifiers, it is assumed it is the Babylonian Talmud, not the Jerusalem. Now a question, why are there 2 Talmuds? And why is the Babylonian Talmud considered more authoritative than the Jerusalem Talmud? The answer: you are correct that the Babylonian Talmud is much more widely studied than the Jerusalem Talmud. Furthermore, if there is a disagreement between the 2 Talmuds, the Halakha, Torah law, follows the Babylonian Talmud. The simplest explanation for this: the redaction of the Jerusalem Talmud was forcibly interrupted in the mid-4th century when the Romans suppressed Jewish scholarship in Israel, and most of the Talmudic scholars fled to Babylon. The redactors of the Babylonian Talmud, on the other hand, were able to thoroughly review the Talmud and present us about 150 years later with a finished product, which became accepted as the final word in Jewish law and tradition. That is from the Chabad.org website. So when the Romans showed up, they affected the culture a little bit more, as well as, in theory, suppressed the Israelite Jewish tradition, or the rabbis. Because of that suppression of the Jewish scholarship, the Jerusalem Talmud is shorter, as well as a little bit more spurious, so to speak, because of the outsider influence on culture, whereas the Babylonian is the most accepted and supreme work because it was undefiled by outside culture. Now, I googled Pharisees, a member of an ancient Jewish sect distinguished by strict observance of the traditional and written law, and commonly held to have pretensions to superior sanctity. The Pharisees were a social movement and a school of thought in the Holy Land during the time of Second Temple Judaism. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, Pharisaic believers became the foundational liturgical and ritualistic basis for rabbinic Judaism. Ideology, theocracy, oral Torah, populism. The way I look at Pharisees today, go on social media and find how people attack you over any type of dissenting opinion. They will take and mince your words, weaponize them, turn them on you. That's exactly how the Pharisees looked at Jesus. When he performed miracles, they didn't care about the miracle. In fact, it offended them that he performed miracles. They were worried about the methods involved, what he did. They were the fake news of their time. And what are we dealing with now? Google Pharisee as a hate word. See what you find. This is going to be a stopping point. In later videos, I will take the time to go into more detail about some of the more controversial passages in the Talmud. But for now, that's just a primer to set the table. We're going to be jumping into the Noahide Laws and the lesson manual found on noahide.org website. Until next time.
An originator or chief advocate of a heresy. Heresiarch. Heresiarch. French heretic, the ecclesiastical Latin from Greek hereticos, able to choose.